Well. Good afternoon. It is 3:06. I'm Pamela Furr here for the drive on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Glad to have you on board today. Belle K is in the producer's booth. Hello. Glad to have you. I do believe. Who is that over there in the newsroom? That strange face. That's Jay.
Strange face. Yes. I've been told that before, even by people that know me well. Who's that strange face?
Good to have you in the news booth today as
thanks,
well.
Pamela.
I don't know about you guys, but I am so glad it's Friday. This has been one exhausting week of news. This has been one exhausting week of, what the hell, kind of questions going on in our world. The 21st century has not turned out the way I thought it would turn out. That is an understatement, I do believe. So we're just going to it's Phone Your Farb Friday also today. And so we will honor that tradition on Fridays in the afternoons. So at some point, we will open up the phone lines. You can call us at 615-737-9986. You can use that number on our Super Text line, although I haven't pulled it up yet. I will. Our Super Talk TV is on. And obviously, you can listen to us on the radio. Thank you for doing that today. Now, here's a story. Really? The CEO of Anheuser-Busch is finally speaking out. Did you know this? Had you heard this today? Breaking his silence after Bud Light's partnership with trans TikTok star Dylan Mulvaney, after it drew some backlash from folks. His name is Brendan Whitworth. That sounds so refined. Whitworth. That sounds like old money, doesn't it? Old Southern money, in fact. At any rate, I digress. CEO Brendan Whitworth said, "We never intended," in a statement he released today, "we never intended to be part of a discussion that divides people. We are in the business of bringing people together over a beer." That backfired on you. Aside from an initial terse statement, Anheuser-Busch had remained silent since the controversy emerged on April 1st, which a lot of people honestly thought it was an April Fool's joke. I thought it was an April Fool's joke. I guess the joke was on us. Conservative Bud Light fans questioned why Mulvaney had been tapped to promote the beer on TikTok. The TikTok channel that she created, or he, to document her gender transition. In the meantime, the controversy took on a bizarre life of its own. Indeed, you had Kid Rock shooting all of his cases of Bud. You had Travis Tritt taking Bud Light off his tour and out of his riders, right? You had John Rich saying we're going to let the customer decide whether or not to carry the products at Redneck Riviera. And I guess I heard a rumor customers were deciding not to buy it. And so now they've got all this Bud sitting around not being used, and eventually beer goes bad, does it not? I'm not a big beer connoisseur, as they say, but I believe it goes bad if you don't drink it. And there's been counter backlash with Howard Stern slamming the Fury as overblown, Joe Rogan calling the conservative outrage kind of goofy. Regardless, the bottom line is this: the consumer does decide. The demand does decide. Wherever you stand on an issue of transgender, if you don't want to buy Bud Light anymore, nobody is forcing you to buy it because they've suddenly gone woke. You don't have to. You have free will. And Bud Light should have known that. My time serving this country taught me the importance of accountability and the values upon which America was founded: freedom, hard work, and respect for one another. This is the CEO talking, Mr. Whitworth, who, by the way, is a former Marine lieutenant, CIA officer, and Harvard Business School graduate. Now, I guess he's not in the business of doing the hiring per se, but you would think that he would have hired a better marketing person who made this decision to do this sort of thing. That's just my 2 cents on that. But he says, as CEO of Anheuser-Busch, I'm focused on building and protecting our remarkable history and heritage. I care deeply about this country, this company, our brands, and our partners. I spend much of my time traveling across America, listening to and learning from our customers, distributors, and others. Moving forward, I will continue to work tirelessly to bring great beers to consumers across our nation, is what he had to say. Now, does that do it for you? Does that comment coming from a former Marine, a CIA officer, and a Harvard Business School graduate, does that patch things up and make you want to go buy a Bud? I think if it were me, just being honest, and I hate to see people losing their jobs, but I would think that the marketing director that planned this, Mulvaney, whatever her name is, planned this, should either find another line of work with another company or do some heritage training on the company itself and who the customers are. You know, one of the things, and I'll give you some behind the scenes information. One of the things in radio that you learn is who your audience is. And I would say every host here knows who you are. We have an idea, a really good idea of who you are listening right now. You love God. You love this country. You love Tennessee. Even though Tennessee, some weirdness has happened in the last couple of weeks, you certainly love Tennessee. You love to help people. You like football, college football, even more specifically. Most of you are a UT fan. I mean, I can go on and on down the list. A whole lot of men like to listen. You know, so it's a good idea if you're marketing a product to know who your audience is. And this woman who made this decision obviously didn't know who her audience was. So perhaps some, I don't know, time on the road along with the CEO, meeting people like your Chris Rocks and your frat boys. Is that what she said? I think that's what she said. She said she doesn't want it to look like a frat boy brand anymore. And those frat boys are the ones that made that company, you know, what it is. All right. So that's the statement from Mr. Brendan Whitworth today on Bud Light. Again, does that make you want to go get a Bud this weekend? I'm not a beer drinker. Coors Light is not even good to me. And that's no offense to Coors Light and all the people that own that brand. That's just not my thing.
Bud Light is really not that bad of a beer. And if you don't think it's very good, you're clearly not putting enough chocolate syrup in it.
Oh, ooh. Ugh. That sounds disgusting.
You hush your mouth, woman.
Blah. Now, I like a good ale. Is that beer? I like a woodchuck. You know, have you had a woodchuck?
Are you having a stroke?
Wood. I am not having a stroke. No, it's really good beer. It's a really good ale. So I'll drink that. Or there's another one. Is it Orchard or something like that? That's another one. You know, it's fruity. So I'll drink that. But I'm just not a beer connoisseur at all. I think a lot of my friends drink Modelo. Is that a good beer? Or a Corona. Now, I'll do a Corona You know what I've done? I've done a really good, huge margarita that has a Corona turned upside down in it. Now, that's pretty good. And I've had a Guinness because, I've been to Ireland. So I had a genuine glass of Guinness, cold Guinness in Ireland. That was pretty good if you like beer. I will only do it in Ireland. I'm not going to drink it here, but I hear somebody's mic on. Who wants to chime in here?
That would be me. I'm impressed though that you mentioned you're not a big beer drinker, but you did the Guinness. I mean, that's
right.
That stout stuff,
That
which is my favorite. I mean, I love the
Guinness.
I love the dark stout manly brews.
Or I'll drink a Bloody Mary the way that I drink them. That you put a little bit of Guinness in the bottom of it, then you do the vodka and the tomato juice and all that kind of stuff. That's actually really good too. It gives it kind of a stoutness. All right, enough of the recipes for the day. Enough of the beer talk. We will get into some other things. We do have to talk about this leaker, Jack Teixeira. I think I'm saying his name properly. He is now charged with violating the Espionage Act. And when you are charged with something like that, you're going to spend a whole lot of time in prison. Now, if I were his lawyer, if I were one giving him any advice, I would say you need to request a gender change because that might get you a pardon like it did with Bradley Manning when he was charged with the same. Just saying. It's 3:18. I'm Pamela Furr, in for Brian Wilson on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
A highly anticipated decision by the Supreme Court on the abortion pill controversy, and words exchanged this morning during the accused military intel leaker's arraignment. Details coming up at 3:30. I'm Jay Harper on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Thank you very much, sir. I appreciate it. Yeah, I do want to talk about the leaker, the so-called leaker this afternoon. So we're going to do that on the drive. It is 3:22. Of course, news at 3:30. Glad you're here. Super Talk 99.7 WTN. We will do Phone Your Farb Friday. We'll do that at 3:35. We'll open up the phone lines to you. Anything goes within reason. Be respectful. And I don't know, bring a sister a cider. I have now been corrected. The ones that I like, the Woodchuck and the Angry Orchard, they're ciders. They're not ales and they're not beers. And so I guess I apologize to all those who are offended.
Well, at least you're not drinking Zima.
Zima. I haven't heard Zima in. Was that 80s or was that 90s?
That was 80s.
Yeah. Fresca and Zima. I haven't heard those in forever. Good Lord. We're aging ourselves, Belle. We're aging ourselves. All right. So yesterday we learned who the Pentagon leaker was. And I got to tell you, I had and still do have lots of questions. Something just seems so off about this. How the you-know-what does a 21-year-old have access to these kinds of classified documents, or classified documents, as they say? Jack Teixeira, I don't know how to pronounce his last name. He appeared in a Boston federal court today. He's facing 15 years in prison. I would think it'd be more than that, but okay, 15 years in prison if convicted of illegally taking and leaking classified information and military secrets. So I had to do some digging because I got to tell you, look, I know that young ones enter the military. I know that young ones enter the military for educational purposes, to get a GI, to participate in the GI Bill so that they can get an education. They do their service and then they get an education, or they get it hand in hand, whatever the case may be. So I know that this happens. And not everyone who joins the military is looking to be combat military, right? Even though when we think of military, we think combat. They're going to fight. They're going to be a killing machine, all those stereotypes. But a lot of them are the intellectuals, or you have attorneys, or you have, I can go on, who join the National Guard, citizen soldiers, as they are called. And so this young man is a citizen soldier. He's on the air side, on the Air Force side, as opposed to the Army side of the National Guard. And apparently he was someone who dealt with IT and computers and that sort of thing. But for me personally, I just don't understand. After you go through your basic training, and I guess he was the equivalent of a private first class. He was an airman, so whatever that is on that side. I thought it was an E1 at first, but apparently it's an E3 that he was, I guess still is until he gets, dishonorably discharged. But at any rate, that still seems awfully young to have access to that kind of stuff, simply because, I don't know, your brain is still cooking. Am I right? I think I'm right about this. You talk to any psychologist, psychiatrist, 21-year-olds, their brain is, especially guys, their brain's still cooking.
Yeah, it's not until 25 that your brain is considered fully developed.
Yeah, so, here's a kid, it looks to be that there were no nefarious reasons why he was leaking this information like Bradley Manning did or Edward Snowden did. They felt like they had a cause, and that's why they wanted to. It looked like he was just trying to impress his friends, which is a very immature brain kind of thing to do, right? He appeared in a Boston federal court today, facing 15 years. Fresh questions are being asked as to how this guy who lived with his mother in Massachusetts and is accused of being behind the humiliating security breach got clearance to access these sensitive documents. Now, I spoke to, and I'll tell you who I spoke to. I spoke to my brother-in-law. My brother-in-law, I can say this publicly, is former military intelligence. And he was a warrant officer, right? So he was more on the technical side. He was interrogations and his MOS was interrogation and whatever that other word is that I can't think of right now. He was a big deal. He knows how to get information out of you. And so I called him last night and asked him, how does this happen? And he said, Pamela, it happens all the time. Age has nothing to do with it. It's what your MOS is, what your training is. It's what your job is in the military. It has nothing to do with age. Well, I'm wondering if that needs to change, folks. His mother and father sat with another unidentified relative in the front row, fidgeting as the rest of the courtroom filled with the press. The man said nothing as he entered and sat with his hands in his lap during much of the hearing. Yes, sir, he said when Judge David Hennessy asked him if he had signed the financial affidavit submitted to the court. And yes, Your Honor, when the judge asked if it was accurate. The judge informed him of the charges and told him his right to remain silent. His lawyer from the Bronx Public Defender's office whispered in his ear after the judge finished. He stood up, held out his wrist in front of him, and the U.S. Marshals put on the handcuffs, and he was led away. He looked back when his mother and father called out, I love you, Jack. He said, I love you too, Dad, and was hauled away. His parents said nothing else. It's kind of sad, kind of pitiful, but he should know better. I would think in boot camp, you are trained, anything you see that is classified, you cannot share it. I would think that you learn, second day of training, if you are in the IT department of the military or the National Guard or whatever the case may be, and you sign some documents, if you get clearance, because he had to have had clearance, if you get the clearance, I would think that that if you leak anything, you will go to prison if you're caught. So he knew better. But I'm still shaking my head at, he's 21 years old. Should he ever have had access to this kind of stuff at 21? It's 3:31. I'm Pamela Furr. This is The Drive on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
It is 3:31. I'm Jay Harper with your top stories. A mostly cloudy sky on Music Row, 72 degrees. A complete weather update and traffic are upcoming. The Associated Press is reporting the Supreme Court said today it will temporarily keep in place federal rules for use of the abortion drug mifepristone, while it takes more time to fully consider the issues raised in a court challenge. In an order signed by Justice Samuel Alito, the court asked both sides to weigh in by Tuesday over whether lower court rulings restricting the FDA's approval of the drug should be allowed to take effect while the case works its way through federal courts. The order suggests the court will decide that issue by late Wednesday. The Biden administration and New York-based Danco Labs, the maker of the pill, asked the justices to intervene. Jack Teixeira in court this morning in Boston. Investigators say the 21-year-old low-ranking Air Force National Guardsman posted classified documents online about a week or so back, including data on activity of U.S. adversaries and allies. ABC's Aaron Katursky was there this morning and tells us the accused had 3 people sitting in the front row reserved for family members.
First, he appeared to smile at them as he entered court in handcuffs, and it was a very brief appearance. When it was over, he stood at the defense table, offered his wrists to the marshals so that he could be recuffed, and as he was led from court, that's when someone in the front row called out, "I love you, Jack," and he responded, "I love you too, Dad."
That is the latest news. Weather and traffic, they're on the way next. I'm Jay Harper, WTN News.
It is 3:38. Good afternoon. Hallelujah. It is Friday. I'm Pamela Furr in the chair today. Brian taking the day off. Glad you're with us. 615-737-9986. Again, the number is 615-737-9986. You can also text us on the super text line. We're talking a little bit about the leaker, the young leaker, 21 years old. And by the way, it is Phone Your Farb Friday. I don't know if there's a theme song for that, but it's Phone Your Farb Friday. And so the phone lines are open.
Tell me what's on your mind. I wanna know.
Nice.
What you're thinking. There are some things you can't hide. I wanna know.
Boy, this brings back memories of high school and Zima.
Hey, Pam.
Yeah.
99.7 on the FM dial. You should check him out sometime. His name's Brian Wilson.
What? What'd I say?
You didn't even know this was the theme.
Oh, I didn't. No, I did not. No. It is the theme. I thought you just pulled that out of your repertoire.
No, this is the theme that Chris put together for the segment.
I'm sorry. Now, I normally listen. I just didn't. Nobody's going to believe me,
You're
are
so
they?
busted.
I do try to listen. Let's go to Pete. I really do. I swear. Pete in Nashville, help me out of this. Hi. Welcome to Phone Your Farb Friday. Pete?
Hey, how you doing?
I'm great. How are you?
Sorry, I didn't know you were talking to me, but I just wanted to let you know that by the time I was 18, I was a fire team leader, and then by the time I was 19, before I was 19, I was a squad leader with a combat unit when I was in the Marines, and then by the time I was 21. I sat on the nuclear react team for the 12th Marines.
Oh, wow.
And
nice.
And then I was a platoon sergeant when I was 21. By the time I was 23, I picked up staff sergeant.
So you were a platoon sergeant at 21. So let me ask you a question. Did you ever try to show off anything that you had learned to impress your friends?
No, I didn't care what they thought.
Oh, well, that's good. That's good. But I have to ask you, I don't know how old you are now. Would you say
I'm almost 70.
Would you say your brain was fully cooked yet?
Oh yeah, you had to be, in order to be in charge of people and their lives, you had to grow up fast.
Yeah. But
and
you were in the
reason I got
Marines,
to
though,
that
right?
because-
You were Marines.
Yes, 6 years I spent in the Marines.
Wouldn't you say there's a huge difference between a Marine and a flyboy?
Oh, absolutely. The
Yeah.
basic training and everything is totally different.
Totally different. Yes.
Especially going back 50 years
Yeah. No kidding.
or more than 50 years.
Yeah. Pete, thank you for your service to our country. It was 6 years, right?
Oh. Yes, I spent 6
Excellent.
years. I was going to be in for. I was going to spend a career at it,
Yeah.
but then Jimmy Carter came in, and it just. When Jimmy Carter was in, we had a hard time fielding a division.
Yeah.
Because he cut things back so far.
Yeah.
And at some point, I thought he was the worst president until this guy got in office.
Gotcha. All right. Thank you, Pete. I appreciate your telephone call. And again, thank you for your service. 615-737-9986. James is on the line. Whoa. James, you all right?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. So what's your comment on Phone Your Farb Friday?
My question is what's going to happen when the NFL and the college football games start, and what kind of impact the beer sales are going to be with Budweiser?
You know, that is a very good question. They need to do some work on fixing their image between now and football season, don't they?
Yeah, because they're going to really feel what the American people are going to think when it comes down to that.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I've been getting some text messages from a couple of friends of mine in the distribution business, and with the bourbon bash that I do, I deal with a lot of folks, and they're saying locally, Anheuser-Busch and Bud Light sales are down 45%. That's huge. All right, let's go to Ricky in Watertown. Hey, Ricky, how you doing?
Pretty good. How you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. Glad you're on. What's up?
You was talking about the beer earlier.
Yeah.
Beer does have a best by date.
I thought it did. So at some point it'll go bad, won't it?
Oh, yes, it will. And I don't know if either one of y'all ever went there. If you wanted some good beer, the Gerst House that used to be in Nashville.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, God, they had good food, good in-house beer. We used to laugh and joke, kind of like, get off work, we're going to go get us a burst of Gerst.
That's right. When did they shut that place down?
I think it was right after the bombing.
Yeah, I think you might be right. Wow. All right. Thank you, Ricky. Have a good day. Have a great weekend. Michael in Manchester. Hey there, Michael. What's up?
Hey, I got a question, and once I ask it, I'll just hang up and listen to your response, ma'am.
Sure.
But the two gentlemen that got expelled and then reinstated,
Yes, sir.
and the lady as well, once everything gets back to somewhat a level field for those three, can they also not be reinstated with their committees?
Well,
they just show up and that's it.
Well, so Michael, that's a very good question. So I'll let you go and I'll answer that. It is my understanding Gloria Johnson already has her committee assignments back. I can't remember who reported that. I'll look that up here in just a moment when I get an opportunity in the commercial break. But I reported that earlier this week on one of the shows that I filled in for. And so that to me is weird. Why would you go through the rigmarole of stripping her of her committee assignments when you're just going to turn right around and give them back to her? That makes no sense to me whatsoever. Yes, Bill?
Is that something Speaker Sexton had to personally approve?
I believe so.
So would it be a formality to approve it, or would he be able to say, no, we're not appointing her?
Well, I mean, he stripped her of it to begin with. So this doesn't make any sense to me. Does it to you?
Not.
It makes zero sense.
Not if he has the legal authority to say, no, I will not seat her on that committee.
On the committee. So he's the one that stripped her, so he can also put her back, and that's apparently what happened. And so I don't understand why. Now, I'm going to say this, and then I'm going to leave.
Well, I know what it is. I mean, obviously, it's because she's white. She got her committee back because she's white, and we're all a bunch of racists here in Tennessee.
Racist, damn racist. Well, see, here's the thing. I'm going to say this. I'm going to address this. I'm going to leave it here. There are a ton of rumors going on right now. A ton on the internet. And I have been chasing these rumors for the last couple of days. And I am not satisfied enough to think that any of it is true yet to be able to talk about it on the air. This is me, Pamela. No one has said, don't talk about it. Nobody has said, you have to talk about it. Nothing like that. But for my standards, but I have to, the question remains, why did Cameron Sexton, at the very beginning of all of this, when after the Bullhorn incident happened, the next day the motions were brought to the floor for expulsion of all three. Then on Friday, I started making the phone calls. I was told by the speaker's office that you do not have to reseat them if they're sent back. I was told by two, and possibly three, I'd have to go back and look at my notes, three lawmakers, three House lawmakers who said they were told by Sexton's office that they would not have to reseat them if they expelled them. Then the weekend happened. And I mean, to the point that I actually went back and forth a little bit with Matt Murphy about this because I was given the under no uncertain terms that you would not have to reseat them. Then that started to fluctuate. And then suddenly, well, we're looking at it. Then suddenly it's, no, we have to reseat them. Well, how did all this change? And Gloria Johnson's committee assignments were stripped from her. How did it change that you give it right back? I mean, you can seat them. She wasn't expelled, but you can still maintain the punishment for calling your colleagues racist and let the punishment last for the rest of the session. So I don't know why this happened. There's something bizarre. It doesn't look good. It's bizarre. I'm disappointed. I'm tired of the fighting. I'm tired of the name calling. I told somebody earlier today in discussing all of this, I love Tennessee. Tennessee is my home. I could sit here and cry about it. Tennessee is my home for lots of reasons. It's a beautiful state, beautiful land, beautiful people. I don't care what label you wear. We all are walking the same road, are we not? We're walking the same road. We have the honest to goodness same desires out of life. You want to be able to pay your bills. You want to be able to take care of your family. You want to be able to go to church if you want to or not go to church if you don't want to go to church. You want to just be able to live your lives and enjoy your friends and family and worship. We all have those same. We have more in common than we have not in common in Tennessee. I love the spirit of Tennessee, the volunteer spirit, which just fits along with my life. I love volunteering. I love charity work. I love all of that. I love the music that comes out of this state. And it's not just country music. There's a whole plethora of wonderful music that comes out of the state. I love that it has a creative energy that runs underneath the dirt and the soil. I love it. And so I hate what has been happening. And the black eye, no pun at all, the black eye that's been given to Tennessee throughout this country. Now, there's only one good part to all of this, that maybe perhaps people from California won't be rushing so quickly to move here. That's the only good thing out of this I can see. It is, I'm joking, sort of. It's 3:51. More of Phone Your Farb Friday coming up. I'm Pamela Furr on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
A highly anticipated Supreme Court decision on the abortion drug and more details in that murder case in San Francisco of the Cash App founder. All this and more coming up at 4. I'm Jay Harper on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
3:58. Thank you very much, Jay. We don't have time to go back to the Phone Your Farb people, but somebody on a super texter said I should call it Phone Your Fur Friday. That just sounds so weird to me. So no, we're not going to do that when I fill in. But thank you. Thank you for the vote of confidence here. By the
Phone
way,
Your Crazy Redhead Ginger Friday.
Ginger says what?
Ginger says what?
So did you know that this weekend in Nashville, in fact, we're just 3 hours away or so, Vice President Mike Pence is going to be here tonight. And then tomorrow, Donald Trump. Did you know that? Not for anything public. It's for a high donor fundraiser for the RNC. But yeah, that's going on this weekend. So is the NRB or NRA. Anyway, more to come on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
It is 4:01 and happy Friday. I'm Jay Harper with your top stories. A mostly cloudy sky, 73 degrees downtown, a complete forecast and a traffic report upcoming in just a few. Just hours before new restrictions were set to be put in place on the abortion drug mifepristone, Supreme Court Justice Samuel Alito issued an administrative stay this afternoon of the Texas court ruling until midnight, April 19th. ABC's Devin Dwyer explains what new restrictions would be passed on to those looking for access to the drug if the decision is upheld.
This drug can only be used up to 7 weeks instead of 10 weeks of pregnancy. That means that women would have to get the drug from their doctors, in fact, make 3 in-person visits to be able to use it. They wouldn't be able to get it through the mail or from a telehealth prescription, and they would not be able to use generic versions of the drug, which is across the board, across the country right now. So pretty significant change.
Rallying around guns and against Democrats, Vice President Mike Pence earlier today at the NRA Leadership Forum in Indianapolis. ABC's Dave Packer is there.
Former Vice President Mike Pence addressing the NRA Leadership Forum.
I came here today before the NRA to say enough is enough. It's time we took a stand. for America and for freedom.
Just days after America's latest mass shooting at a bank in Louisville, Kentucky, Pence proclaiming,
We don't need gun control. We need crime control. We don't need lectures about the liberties of law-abiding citizens. We need solutions to protect our kids.
Pence calling gun ownership a God-given right.
New details involving a motive in last week's murder of Cash App founder Bob Lee in San Francisco. Police said this week it was targeted and the two knew each other. Now we're hearing about a possible motive.
In court documents obtained by ABC News, prosecutors allege fellow tech entrepreneur Nima Malmini was angry with Bob Lee for possibly having a relationship with Malmini's sister, who is married. They allege Malmini had been calling that night and finally showed up at the apartment belonging to Malmini's sister. Then Bob Lee showed up. They left in Malmini's BMW. The BMW was seen on video driving to a dark, secluded place, and then Lee was stabbed to death. Prosecutors say a knife with blood on it was found nearby. Malmini is now charged with murder.
That is Alex Stone reporting. There's your latest news, traffic, and weather. Our next, I'm Jay Harper, WTN News.
Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Well, good afternoon. I am Pamela Furr in the driver's seat. Is that a better way to say it? I'm in for Brian Wilson. Thank you for having me with you today. 615-737-9986 is the phone number. It is Phone Your Farb Friday, and we will be taking some of those phone calls. We may have, by the way, Belle, just a heads up, because I'm doing text messages with this guy right now.
This is what?
State Senator Mark Pody will be calling possibly at some point this afternoon to talk about a couple of bills that are making its way through the state Senate to help make schools more secure. So be looking for that. Is there something? Did you want to say something
You
else?
actually need to file bills for that? Is that how that works?
Apparently so. Yes,
Hey, you learn
yes.
something new every day.
That is the case. So, but one of these is legislation that would equip teachers with silent panic buttons in schools. So
And you make that happen by filing legislation.
Correct.
Interesting.
What is your point?
I don't know. I didn't know that, but then again, I'm not a member of the House.
Or the Senate. Okay, I still don't know your point.
They didn't file any gun control legislation.
Oh, I see.
But they want to complain about
it. Gotcha. I understand. No, they did not. I did a ton of research. Now, what Bella is referring to, of course, is the so-called, I don't want to call them this anymore. I call them the two Justins and a Johnson. But they, B-word and moaned and complained about gun legislation, and yet this session, not one of them have filed any kind of legislation or signed on to any kind of legislation that had to do with anything about guns, with the exception of guns and boats and something like that. But it had nothing to do with schools. It had nothing to... So I searched for several hours through all the bills and all the legislation and all of that. And no, none of them filed it. But then you do have lawmakers that actually file some bills that might do some good, that might help our schools. Now, the one I'm talking about in particular is called Alyssa's Law. It would equip Tennessee school teachers with silent panic buttons. This legislation unanimously passed in the state Senate yesterday, and Governor Lee says he plans to sign it when it reaches his desk. It was spearheaded by the mother of a 14-year-old Parkland, Florida student, Alyssa, I can't pronounce her last name, Al-Hadef. She died in the 2018 mass shooting. According to her mother, she was shot 8 times in her English classroom. 8 times. 32-0, it passed in the Senate. I don't think it's passed in the House yet. The mobile panic button system is a concept that apparently has already saved lives.
Is this like an app you would have on your phone?
Well, that's what I'm going to tell you about. So let's see. It's called Safer Watch. It's a mobile panic alert system, and says on average they cut down response times by 32%. I'm still reading here. The CEO, Gino Raffio, says we've been able to stop 12 school shootings, all based on tips. So based on people who have had information, and they've been able to report that information through Safer Watch. He says it's because they streamlined the entire emergency process. Our technology allows people to be able to communicate in real time as they are at that incident, and they will be able to deliver information to first responders on the scene. That may include their location. That may include actual live videos. Senator Mark Pody, who we may have on here a little later on this afternoon, says that at first, lawmakers decided to postpone the bill And after the shooting, they decided, you know what? The panic button system seems like a really good idea. Senator Pody says they're also working on adding more mental health resources, and we'll talk to him about it. But that's what I want to know. Is this an app? Is it an actual, like you used to have? This sounds so silly to even bring this up. Like pagers. Used to have pagers. So maybe it's just that button system where it hits, or like the thing that you use, help, I've fallen, I can't get up. Where you press a button and you then talk to somebody live immediately. Like you're not put on hold. You're not calling 911. You're like right there as soon as you hit the button. Or like, what is it in your car? OnStar.
OnStar, yeah.
Maybe it's something like that. But I have to tell you, it makes sense to me to have some sort of panic button system somewhere so that you can quietly hit that. I don't think students need to know where it is. But
it goes way beyond school shootings. I mean, if there's a medical emergency, if you have a fight break out between students, I mean, there's so many different reasons that could have value.
That could have a lot of value. So as the two Justins and a Johnson tell you that we need to do something and we need to do something now, well, here's something. And this one isn't bad to make the schools safer. I like it. I like the legislation that's making its way through that puts an SRO at every school, and should have happened already. We're just now doing this. We should have already had this done. I like the legislation that's making its way, may have already passed in both chambers, that requires schools in the state of Tennessee to have some sort of safety plan when it comes to active shooters. Because let's just be honest, now that we know how many rounds were fired from the shooter at the Covenant School, it could have been so much worse. But they went through active shooter training and actually followed the training that they had just received that year. And I believe 100% lives were saved because of that. It could have been so much worse. 415-737-9986 is the phone number. We've got Tony in Tullahoma. Can we turn that down just a tad? Hey, Tony, are you there?
Yes, ma'am.
All right.
Good afternoon, Miss Pamela.
How are you?
Very well, thank you.
All right.
You were talking earlier about the 21-year-old leaker and how he had privy to that information at such a young age, and he surely must have had some training. Now, his crime, if I'm not mistaken, was he put top secret classified information out into the public domain on the internet. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm. Correct.
Isn't that exactly what Hillary Clinton did?
Well, did she put it on the internet? I think she had emails, but I don't know. Hang on, let me answer your question. But I don't think that she actually posted those emails.
No, she didn't post them, but she had it where the public could reach it because it wasn't behind the proper firewalls.
Well, do you know anybody in the public that reached it?
No.
All right. So this is, I see what you're saying, but I think this is a little different.
Okay.
All right. Have a good day. 737-9986. Fernando in Shelbyville. Welcome to The Drive with Brian Wilson.
Hey, how you doing?
Fabulous.
Yeah. Well, I joined the Army in 1977 and was required to have a security clearance before I could go to get my education to operate a obsolete radar. And I never did get a security clearance the full 3 years I was in the Army. I was a good soldier because I got promoted to E5 in 2 years and 3 months. Which
excellent.
Is pretty good for peacetime.
Yeah.
And but I just don't see that the Army can be just as bad as anything else because it's ran by the government.
Well,
you know,
good
so-
point there. Thank you very much, Fernando, and thank you for your service to our country. 737-9986. You can also text us if you would like to send us a text. I'm trying to read all of them. Some of them are nice, and some of them aren't so nice. That's okay. It's a free country. 418, though, we are going to take a quick break, and we'll take more of your phone calls, and we'll continue to look at some of the legislation that's making its way through our state House and Senate. And we'll also continue to talk about this leaker as we find more information about him and what his possible motivation could have been to risk his entire career and his freedom for the next 15 years just to impress a group of people in a Discord chat room. It's just a little insane to me, but we'll talk about it. All right, we'll continue to talk about it and more right here on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
A much anticipated decision handed down from the U.S. Supreme Court on an abortion drug. And we'll have this afternoon's Money News. All this coming up at 4:30. I'm Jay Harper on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Thank you, Jay Harper. 4:23 Friday afternoon. So glad it's Friday. This has been one long week. Holy smokes. A lot of stuff going on in the world. And I'm just ready to be disengaged. Now, it's not going to happen until after 7 o'clock, but I'm ready to just disengage from it all and sit outside and look at trees and birds and drink water, because that's all I can drink right now.
And wave your hands around in front of your face and talk about the pretty colors.
Yeah, yes. Exactly. That's what I want to do. All right. So Mark Pody will join us. In fact, I think he's calling right now to tell us more about the legislation that's out there to make schools safer, that's making its way through the state Senate. And we also have this Alyssa's Law. This is the legislation that is going to be used to equip teachers with panic buttons. I believe it's heading to the governor's desk. Senator Pody, thank you for joining us today.
Absolutely, Pamela. It's always an honor to be on with you.
Thank you, sir. All right, so tell me more about this Alyssa's Law. You are a part of this legislation?
Well, yeah, so when the shootings happen, and some of this has been working for a long time, so the governor, and they've been doing a lot of studying of what is effective and what isn't. And the Alyssa Law has actually shown to be effective in a couple of states. You know, I think like Florida, New York, New Jersey have already put this law in. And some of it started out in different forms and such, you know, with like panic buttons in the classroom and such. And we wanted to make it where it's going to be a lot more mobile. And the goal would have been to where school bus drivers would be able to have one. So anybody working with the kids would have that. And it'd almost be like something you've seen, like a life alert on their neck.
Okay. That's what I wanted to know, because I wasn't sure if this was going to be a button under a desk or on a phone app. So that makes sense. So it's a life alert, or even like OnStar in your car, where you push a button and you're immediately connected with law enforcement.
Right, and that's the part that I'm working on now. This one doesn't currently have everything in place. So I'm trying to do a bill that will make it that way.
Gotcha.
So every single teacher will have something that they would wear, and they just hit a button, and it would instantly go to the administration as well as emergency 911, whatever phone calls that they directed it to. And my goal would be that then through GPS or whatever, they would instantly know where they are, and they would continue to record everything that's going around. So law enforcement would know what's going on right there, where somebody doesn't have to be talking. So if there was something going on, law enforcement would hear what's happening at that point.
Sure. And are you hoping that what you're working on to tweak a little bit will get past this session, or is it something you're going to have to work on throughout the summer and then next session get passed?
It won't pass this session. We're actually going to be out, and the goal is going to be to end session next week.
Right.
So we'll be out, and this is, we were trying to do an amendment to one of the current bills, but it looks like because of the funding and the cost, we're going to have to put it onto a new bill next year.
Gotcha.
But at this point, I think we have a lot of support for something like this, because every single teacher in every single class would feel that they've got something that they can use right there, just a touch of a button, where somebody's calling somebody instantly without them having to dial, without them having to find their phone or anything else. They've got a panic button on their neck.
Excellent. All right, so let me ask you, while I have you, and you and I haven't even talked about this, but I have you now, so I'm going to ask some questions. So where do you stand on the governor asking for the legislature to pass something that would, I guess there are those that call it extreme risk orders of protection or protection orders, where it would separate someone who's having some sort of episode, a mental episode, separate them from their weapons if they own any, or restrict them from being able to buy any. Where are you on that at this point?
So if somebody said, Mark, are you for a red flag law in any form? I'm going to say no. if they're going to be saying, is there a process where somebody can say, look, there's due process where they got to go through a court system, they got to go through where they have an opportunity to defend themselves, hire an attorney or whatever before something happens, where we can say this is clearly somebody that doesn't need to own a firearm, and we need to look at that. I would be for that, but if it happens before they have due process, then I would be absolutely against it.
Against it. Well, it seems like if you're talking about a protective order, that within itself would leave itself open for going before a judge, being able to defend yourself. I don't know if there's an ex parte part in there, but I would think that you would go through due process.
And Pamela, until I see the details, and it's easy for people to work in generalities, and especially as you know in legislation, it's always in the details of how it's worded, what it actually says, and not the intent of what somebody's trying to say that matters. I have to read that bill just to make sure that due process and every citizen's rights are protected before I would be in favor of anything.
Gotcha. All right. Well, on that note, I will have to let you go because we're up against the clock here for news. Thank you so much, State Senator Mark Pody, for calling me. You're always very good to me when I text and go, I need you, and you're right there. So thank you very much.
Have a blessed day.
All right, you do the same. Bye-bye. And I should have said before I hung up on him, thank you, honestly, for working with other members there in the state Senate to do something to help keep our schools safer. People asked us to do something. We are. It's just getting lost in all the hubbub of racism and being labeled racist and bigots that people aren't paying attention to what we're actually doing.
So he filed gun safety legislation.
Yes. Can you believe it?
Oh, is that a secret how you do that? Is that like you have to be the handshake on how to get legislation filed?
No, it's actually public record.
That's surprised.
It's 4:30. I am Pamela Furr on The Drive with Brian Wilson on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Good afternoon. It is 4:31, and I'm Jay Harper with your top stories. We're seeing some sunshine through those clouds, and it's 73 degrees on Music Row. Weather and traffic are on the way. Just hours before new restrictions were set to be put in place on the abortion drug mifepristone, Supreme Court Justice Samuel Alito issued an administrative stay a little earlier this afternoon on the Texas court ruling until midnight, April 19th. That would essentially give the case a timeout to give justices more time to make a decision on a potential stay on the case pending appeal. ABC's Devin Dwyer explains the decision to ask for this pause.
The government says this would cause chaos, regulatory uncertainty for pharmaceutical companies, families, states, millions of women in this country, and they asked the Supreme Court, along with the drug company, to put all of that on hold, to freeze the status quo in place while these legal battles continue to play out at all levels of the court.
Again, that is Devin Dwyer reporting. Now, here's Dave Packer with today's money news.
From ABC News, Wall Street Now. Stocks finished the day lower as investors still try to assess the health of the banking industry. It would seem very healthy if you consider J.P. Morgan Chase's earnings. The nation's largest bank posting a 52% profit increase in the first quarter of this year. J.P. Morgan Chase seeing new funds from depositors seeking the safety of too-big-to-fail banks. With higher interest rates, the bank making more money on loan and credit card interest, doubling lending income. But at the same time, still concerned about mid-sized banks. Silicon Valley Bank and Signature Bank both failed, and First Republic may not be out of the woods yet after its big bank bailout. And those numbers, the Dow dropped 143 points, but still higher for the week. The Nasdaq fell 42 points, the S&P 500 down 8 points Friday. For the second straight month, Americans are spending less as interest rates rise. The Commerce Department says we're pulling back on purchases at stores, restaurants, and car dealerships.
That is the latest news, traffic, and weather upcoming. I'm Jay Harper, WTN News.
Good afternoon, 438. I am Pamela Furr in for Brian Wilson on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. This is The Drive. Glad to have you on board. It is Phone Your Farb Friday, so we will take your phone calls this afternoon and intertwine them with news of the day. Lots of news, including news of the leaker, the guy who leaked Defense Department documents on a Discord chat room server thingamajig. They have found him. He's 21 years old. He's an Air National Guardsman out of, I believe, Massachusetts. So we've got that on the table. We have Alyssa's law that has now been passed in the state Senate, and I do believe it is now heading to the desk of the governor, which would then, it would equip teachers in schools in Tennessee with some sort of panic button so that they can send a message directly to administrators or to law enforcement that there is a problem and they need assistance immediately. And so that's another way we're trying to help our schools be a little bit more safer for our children, especially in light of what happened at the Covenant School. Can I ask one question, though? Has anybody seen that manifesto? Or what are we at day 17, 18, something like that? And we haven't seen it yet. Does this surprise anybody? Because I believe it's the FBI that has possession of it now, or the journals, or whatever they want to call it. We've yet to see any of that information, and I have to ask why. Now, I do trust the TBI. I don't trust the FBI. And I just have this gut feeling once we finally see it, redaction heaven. It'll be page after page after page of nothing. There was a book I read one time. It was that Valerie Plame lady. And I cannot think of the name of the book or the movie right at this second, but I do. Fair Game. And I've got the book. And she was a member of the CIA. And so she wrote the book, but the CIA said you can't write about these things. You have to redact. So when she released the book, most of the pages were redacted. It was page after page of just black lines throughout the whole thing. So I have a gut feeling that's what we're going to see coming from the FBI on these journals and or manifesto from the shooter in the Covenant school shooting. Don't you? And I need to know why we're not hearing from our local lawmakers on the Metro City Council, those who represent from at the state level that are demanding to see that manifesto. It's time. You've had enough time to look it over. It's time to release it so we can do some. I would think we could use this to better help us understand the mind of a nut so that we could fortify our schools better, pass some more legislation that might help along the way, figure out, is there a pattern when it comes to school shooters or those who are suffering from gender dysphoria or whatever. But we could at least try to analyze the mind of a very troubled individual. That's my 2 cents on it. It's 442-737-9986. Let's go to Jack in the Borough. Hey, Jack, welcome to The Drive with Brian Wilson.
Hey, Pamela, you hear me?
I can. Can you hear me?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for taking my call.
Sure.
I want to talk about, school safety.
Yes.
And I feel like it's something that we can do on a community level, and people are not taking that initiative. There's some very simple things that I feel would make schools much safer. One example would be having a perimeter fence around the entire school campus. Why is that not a thing? A fence and a gate, one way in, one way out.
Mm.
And I feel like we could even build these fences for basically nothing, because I feel like people in the community would volunteer. I know I would.
Sure.
I'd step up and help build this fence and get it done for say it's 30 grand, 40 grand, something like that. I mean, that's less than 1 year's salary of a regular employee.
Well, and here's the other thing too, especially for private schools. I mean, you could do a fundraiser to help do something like that.
Well, you could even do fundraisers for
regular schools, sure. But I mean, public schools get a lot more funding than some of the private schools do. So there are all kinds of ways that you could fund something like this. But I do agree that your communities could get involved in this. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And each school now, at this point, because the law is about to be signed by the governor, each school at this point is going to be required to have safety measures in place. And maybe for some of these schools, it does include a fence like you're talking about.
Right. But we don't need necessarily to wait on the government to tell us what we must do.
Right.
We have superintendents, we have, PTA organizations, and the community as a whole that can see things that we should do, and we can step up and make better
and do them. Yeah.
Instead of waiting for the government to tell us that we have to.
Right.
Don't
disagree with you at all, Jack. I appreciate the phone call. Thank you very much. Have yourself a great weekend. Let's go to Lance in Bristol. Hey, Lance, Bristol, Tennessee.
Bristol, Tennessee.
Well, welcome.
Well, forgive me for my ignorance of not being able to hear you lately. I'm out of market, of course, and I don't listen that often. But I was tuning in today, and I wanted to add on to the House members thing, and I had a question too about your opinion. The House members story, I heard one time that Kamala Harris came to Nashville.
She did.
So I wonder if she wasn't involved in some way of threatening Cameron Sexton in one way or the other.
Well, what could she do that would threaten a member of the House? Because she has no power.
Get him out of. I mean, they've got immense pull with the party. They can primary the guy. They can bring charges against the guy. So look what they did to Brett Kavanaugh.
Yeah, but what kind of charges would they bring against a state house member?
I don't know. I don't know the guy's history, but they will invent something to charge the guy with. You know that as well as I do. So my question was about Dylan Mulvaney. Is he acts like a caricature of a middle school girl? From what I've heard, I haven't seen the videos. I've seen the snapshots, the screenshots of them.
Right.
And he acts like a middle school girl caricature, and I just wonder if that offends regular women. I mean, my wife is. She's very offended at the way he talks and acts stupid about certain subjects, especially basketball. What he was advertising for Bud Light.
Okay, so you're asking me my opinion if I'm offended by Dylan Mulvaney? Here's my answer to this as a woman, and I hope you're able to listen. I'm going to hang up and you just listen off the air here. But my opinion on Dylan Mulvaney as a whole, I don't care. That really go live the life that you want to live. His life doesn't offend me. I don't give him that kind of power over me. What does offend me is organizations who are discounting strong, incredible women and choosing someone like Dylan Mulvaney as a spokesperson. Dylan Mulvaney for sports bras? Sports bras were invented out of necessity, and Dylan doesn't have the goods to need a sports bra. So that bothers
you shouldn't
me.
Insult her just because she's flat-chested.
that bothers me. But Dylan Mulvaney doesn't offend me at all. If he wants to live his life that way as a girl, acting like a high school girl, more power to him. It doesn't affect me in the least. But I do think that there is and has been for a long time, I could speak on behalf of women here, that people want to discount strong women. And this is yet another way that men discount strong women. They're now pretending to be women and playing in women's sports and winning the awards when they're not women. So that part bothers me. But as an individual, I don't care. It has no effect on me. All right, 448. I'm Pamela Furr. In for Brian Wilson on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
A U.S. Supreme Court decision on a controversial abortion drug. And get ready for some traffic headaches this weekend in the Nashville area. I'll give you the skinny on that. Those stories and more coming up at 5. I'm Jay Harper on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Why you gotta ruin our weekend like that? Thanks a lot. But it's coming up at 5 o'clock. Be listening for that. That's Jay in for Mac. I'm in for Brian. It's just musical chairs around here for a couple days. That's all right. It's always still good information, and we always love having you on board. So thank you so much for listening today. 615-737-9986 is our phone number. It is Phone Your Farb Friday. So we'll get back to more of your phone calls coming up. We also will take your text messages if you'd rather do that. Before, though, any of that, and as we come to the 5 o'clock hour, Producer Bell, I have to ask you a question. Do you know what was released today, 40 years ago? Today. This is going to age us both. And as soon as I play it, I think you're going to know. Do you have any guesses?
Actually, I got too many guesses.
All right, then so here we go.
Yeah.
40 years ago, David Bowie. Let's Dance.
And
what?
And Stevie Ray Vaughan plays guitar on this.
Oh, I don't know that I knew that.
Hey, you really want to feel old? 50 years ago today, the Led Zeppelin album Houses of the Holy released. But that's probably before your time, Miss Pamela.
No, if you really, really want to feel old, 60 years ago, Pamela Furr was born.
No, you did not just say that out loud.
You want me to? I'll go in there and slap him for you. Yeah,
Slug him.
he's been giving you a hard time.
Yeah, no kidding. No, I'm not 60 years old. 50 is a little before my time loving music. But 40, I cannot believe this. All right, that was a good one. I was a teenager. You were playing this already on the radio, Bill.
No, not even close.
Yeah, I hate to admit, Pamela, but I was. Yeah.
Ah, okay.
I was probably 4 or 5 years away from it.
I was about 4 years away from it. So that just aged us both, if you know what the legal age of working in radio is. Well, this is good for Friday as we head up into 5 o'clock, all right? I'm not a dancer, by the way, and people are noticing that on the Super Talk TV. I don't dance. Your mama don't dance and your daddy don't rock and roll. That's me. All right, I believe we are right there now. We need to take a break. Am I correct? Yes, I think so. So 5 o'clock news is coming up. Stick around for that. And then more of your phone calls on Phone Your Farb Friday. We'll give you the latest on the Department of Defense leaker guy who is an Air National Guardsman who was in court today and now charged. So we're going to give you that latest information, the latest information from our state legislature as they try really hard to wrap up business in the next week or two. Many more things to come. Oh, and the CEO of Bud Light has now spoken. That's all straight ahead on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Good evening. It's 5:02, and I'm Jay Harper with your top stories. We're looking at a bit of sunshine, 73 degrees downtown. Weather and traffic are upcoming. Just hours before new restrictions were set to be put in place on the abortion drug mifepristone, Supreme Court Justice Samuel Alito issued an administrative stay earlier today of the Texas court ruling until midnight, April 19th. ABC's Devin Dwyer explains what new restrictions would be passed on to those looking for access to the drug if the drug is upheld.
This drug can only be used up to 7 weeks instead of 10 weeks of pregnancy. That means that women would have to get the drug from their doctors, in fact, make 3 in-person visits to be able to use it. They wouldn't be able to get it through the mail or from a telehealth prescription, and they would not be able to use generic versions of the drug, which is across the board, across the country right now. So a pretty significant change.
Jack Teixeira in court this morning in Boston. Investigators say the 21-year-old Air Force National Guardsman posted classified documents online weeks ago. Investigators have only revealed a fraction of potential evidence, but Teixeira's already looking at a potential prison sentence equal to more than 2/3 of his current age.
The 2 charges that he faces right now carry a maximum of 15 years in prison, but it's just based on the retention and transmission of one government document from back on February 23rd when it was accessed at a computer here in Massachusetts where the airman worked down at Otis Air Force Base. And then on the 24th of February is when he allegedly posted it on Discord.
That's Aaron Katursky reporting. New details revealed in last week's murder of Cash App founder Bob Lee. He was stabbed to death, and police say he knew his killer.
In newly obtained court documents, prosecutors say Bob Lee was stabbed 3 times, once in the hip and twice in the chest. One of the stab wounds penetrated his heart and caused his death. Prosecutors allege suspect Nima Malmini was angry over a possible relationship between Lee and Malmini's sister, who is married. They say video shows Malmini driving Lee to a secluded, dark place, and then Lee was stabbed to death. The murder weapon found nearby.
That's Alex Stone from ABC reporting. The Tennessee Department of Transportation will be conducting its second round of ramp closures on I-40 and I-24 for a bridge repair project this weekend. The closures will get started at 8 o'clock tonight and end Monday at 5 in the morning. The I-24 westbound ramp at exit 52A, that's going to be closed with traffic detoured over to I-440. The 24 and 65 ramps at exit 211, they're also going to be shut down with traffic detoured to I-40 West and I-65 South. That is toward 2nd Avenue. Are you keeping up with all this? That's around the downtown loop. The on-ramp from Murfreesboro Road to I-24 West, that's going to be closed as well as the exit 212 off-ramp from Hermitage Avenue. Those areas are likely going to be quite a mess due to all these closures this weekend, so be prepared to sit in traffic for a while. Also, a side note, the Nashville Predators playing their last game of the season at home tonight. That's a 7 o'clock puck drop. And the Sounds are playing downtown as well at 6:30. So, yeah, you're going to be seeing quite a bit of traffic downtown this evening. That is some of what's happening. Traffic and weather are on the way. I'm Jay Harper, WTN News.
Good afternoon, 9 minutes after 5 o'clock. I'm Pamela Furr in for Brian Wilson on the drive. Excuse me. Welcome to Friday. Hallelujah. It is Friday, and I'm glad to be with you, but I am really looking forward to the weekend. No doubt about it, and I think a lot of you are as well. It is Phone Your Farb Friday, so the phone lines are open, 615-737-9986. You can also super text us as well on the same phone number. We're going to talk about Bud Light. The CEO of Anheuser-Busch has now come out with a statement saying, this was not our intention at all. And then we have the leaker, the suspect charged for revealing and releasing classified documents, a whole lot of them, to a Discord group. His identity revealed. He's been arrested, and today he was charged. And then we have legislation that's making its way through the State House and Senate that is designed to make our schools safer. But then you have this argument about gun laws. Do we have red flag laws that people are trying to pass? Do we have lawmakers who are saying, don't call them red flag laws, they'll be dead on arrival, but if you call it this, then you might be able to pass it. There's all of that going on. You have a bit of confusion over some punishment that Speaker of the House Cameron Sexton handed down to Gloria Johnson, who was not expelled from the House, but she was stripped of her committees. Well, she got them all back. They're back. She's back. So what'd you strip him for? How did it help for a whole week for her not to have committee privileges? Good grief. So something's bizarre in Denmark. Something's off over there. So we'll talk about that. Meanwhile, I'm finding this story more and more interesting. Have you ever used the Cash App? Now, I have. Now, I'll be honest with you. I'll tell you who introduced me to the Cash App. It was Phil Valentine, because I think I sent him some money he was somewhere. I can't remember. I'm like, pick me up a bottle of whatever, a bourbon or something. I can't remember. And he said, well, send me the money. And I said, do you Venmo? He goes, I don't do that commie stuff, but I do the Cash App. And so I downloaded the Cash. So I have the Cash App. I've used it, and I like it. It's made by a different company than what Venmo is, because Venmo, I think, is also PayPal. Isn't it all the same? Yeah. So
same company.
Yeah. So Bob Lee created the Cash App. And apparently a friend, or at least someone he knew, stabbed him in the heart. And so we're getting more information about what that was all about. Now, there were some comments made about how dangerous the city of San Francisco can be these days on the streets of San Francisco. But the people of San Francisco have taken great issue with that, because this was not a random street crime. This was actually someone who knew Bob Lee, the Cash App founder. And apparently it had something to do with his sister. All right, let me give you the story. Tech exec Nima Momini stabbed Bob Lee in the heart after vowing to come down hard on him. Well, I think he accomplished that. Come down hard on him and grilling him over his relationship with his married sister, with whom the Cash App founder exchanged intimate text messages with. Prosecutors released that information today. Momini is charged with murdering Lee on April the 4th in San Francisco. It happened about 2:35 in the morning, something like that, after apparently spending around 2 hours with him in his married sister's apartment. Her name is Kazar. She showed up in court today with her plastic surgeon husband, Dr. Dino Aliciani or something to that effect, a name I'm not familiar with. She was wearing designer glasses. She and her brother immigrated, by the way, to the U.S. from Iran as children. So today, prosecutors shared new facts in this story. In a motion filed in court, they revealed a text from Khazar, that's the sister, to Lee, in which she gushed over what a classy guy he was. Hours before his murder, Nima, that's the IT guy, grilled Lee about his relationship with Khazar, who is married to apparently a prominent local plastic surgeon. He wanted to know whether she'd been doing drugs or anything inappropriate while spending time with him. He'd had a drink with her, apparently, and one of Lee's friends earlier in the day. But, I mean, what a leap here. It's 12:30 a.m. Lee was seen entering Khazar's apartment building. Nima was already inside. At 2:03, Lee and Nima left the apartment building and got into Nima's BMW, who'd offered to drive him to his hotel. Instead, prosecutors say he took him to a shady downtown street where he stabbed him 3 times, including once in the heart, and then he ran away. An unnamed witness said he'd been friends with Bob for 10 years, told police that he believed Lee and Khazar were having an intimate relationship and that her marriage might have been in jeopardy. Both he and Khazar lived in Mill Valley, blah, 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 blah. In a text message to Lee earlier in the day, she gushed, just wanted to make sure you're doing okay because I know Nima came way down hard on you. And thank you for being such a classy man. Handling it with class. Love you, selfish. And then the name is blotted out, so I don't know what that means. Okay. Now, she's gorgeous, by the way. Her brother is actually a good-looking guy, too. Isn't everybody in San Francisco good-looking? I think that's what I've heard.
No.
You sure?
Yes.
Okay.
I've been there.
You've been there? So this is a little seedy. So, I don't know what the overprotection from this brother would be here, but I guess, coming from Iran, they deal with things a little differently there than they do here. I guess she had been in the apartment also when they were fighting, but like the prosecutor said, they left. I don't know. I find the story interesting. Don't know about you, but I'm going to keep following this one. Meanwhile, you have other stories that are out there, and when we come back, let's give you the latest on the leaker story and the latest that has come out since he was charged today. And I think it's 2 charges that he's facing that have to do with leaking classified documents. So that's going to come up here in just a minute after our break. And then it's also Phone Your Farb Friday. And we will take your phone calls on anything you want to get off your chest. You can do that today at 615-737-9986. I am Pamela Furr on the drive on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
The Supreme Court issues a temporary hold on the abortion pill ruling, and interest rates, mortgage rates have seemed to go down a bit. We'll have those stories coming up at 5:30. I'm Jay Harper for Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Thank you very much, Jay. It is 5:22. I am Pamela Furr on the drive with Brian Wilson on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. So we now know that the ID of the guy who leaked classified U.S. documents, his name is Jack Teixeira, and he was a part of a Discord group online, which a lot of gamers are a part of. And he actually sent a message to group members. It was his final message before his arrest. I don't know if you had heard this yet or not. I'm still hearing it and still learning all of this information. So he said, guys, it's been good. I love you all. He told the group of teens and young men. The 21-year-old was sitting on the porch reading a book. Now that's odd. A 21-year-old sitting on a porch reading a book. Anyway, that's when the FBI raided his house. He was dressed in a T-shirt and shorts, and he was hauled in handcuffs to a heavily armored camouflaged vehicle. He told fellow gamers last week, I never wanted it to get like this. I prayed to God that this would never happen. I prayed and prayed and prayed and prayed. Only God can decide what happens from now on. Here's a thought. Don't leak classified documents online. And I think it's actually, as things are starting to unravel and be uncovered, it was actually some of his, quote, friends in this Discord group that threw him under the bus. Teixeira was known for having a fascination with the military growing up. Indeed, he was serving in the same unit that his stepfather, Master Sergeant Thomas Default, retired from 4 years ago. He worked in the 102nd Intelligence Wing. He was known to friends as OG and served as the leader of a Discord server, a chat room called Thug Shaker Central. Members say OG expressed fears that U.S. law enforcement and intelligence were a dark force and ranting about government overreach. Well, honey, I rant about government overreach on a daily basis. Others are saying this guy was a Christian, anti-war. Anti-war. So you join the military because you're anti-war? He just wanted to inform some of his friends about what's going on. This is somebody told the New York Times. How exactly, though, did the dossiers end up online, and where they were disseminated from is now being investigated by the feds? There were clues and messages posted in a chat room on Discord, a social media platform, blah, blah, blah. And according to some others chatting with him, closely guarded U.S. secrets that were displayed. The investigative website Bellingcat, boy, I am so out of touch. Now, I do have a Discord account. I'm not about to tell you what my name is on Discord. I do have a Discord account. I do have a game that I play. Does that make me a gamer? Maybe. Does it make me a geek?
Yes.
Does it make me a nerd?
Yes.
But have you ever heard of Bellingcat?
Yes.
Really?
No.
I've never heard of Bellingcat, but apparently it's an investigative website. And the New York Times, both of them first publicly identified this man minutes before federal officials confirmed he was a subject of interest. They reported tracking profiles on other more obscure sites linked to Teixeira or whatever. I'll tell you one thing I have learned. People are a little nuts. You know what another National Guardsman did here? And he's an Air National Guardsman also. Stand by. Hold on. Sorry, choked on my own words. He's out of Middle Tennessee. Here's this story. He's a 21-year-old Air National Guardsman out of Middle Tennessee. He's facing federal charges. You know why? He allegedly submitted an employment application online to become a hitman. First of all, I have so many questions. Where do you fill out an employment application to become a hitman? I didn't know that there's actually, are there companies, like, have they filed documentation?
Have you never seen John Wick?
No.
Ugh.
No.
Go watch John Wick 1 through 3.
It's a movie. It's not real life. It's a movie.
Right.
It's not a documentary.
Yeah, it is.
It is not. Is it? How do you file paperwork? I've opened businesses before. Do you file paperwork to get your EIN number? And what is your business? We professionally kill people.
No, it's professional eliminations.
Professional elimination. Is that what John Wick does? He's a professional eliminator.
Well, no, he's trying to not be anymore. But they, it's like the old.
He
line.
was, but they keep pulling him back in.
Keep pulling him back in.
All right. Well, this guy, he submitted an employment application online to become a hitman. The U.S. Department of Justice says Josiah Garcia of Hermitage. So you had someone living in Hermitage who wanted to get a job as a hitman. That's not funny, is it? I'm so sorry. He's accused of following up. Let's see. The application, he submitted an application indicated he was interested in obtaining employment as a hitman. He's accused of following up by submitting other identification documents and a resume, saying he's an expert marksman and has been employed in the Air National Guard since 2021.
I have previously killed 16 people, all one-shots.
But how about this? So an undercover agent with the FBI began talking to Garcia. We're going to do news here in a second. An undercover agent started talking to him, right, from the FBI, who agreed to kill someone. You ready? How much? $5,000 would get Garcia to kill someone. Then he met with an agent, not in Hermitage, but in Hendersonville, in a park where he was arrested. Why didn't he use a Cash App? I don't know. Authorities say the website's administrator had previously converted it to a parody site containing false testimonials from those claiming to use hitman services. So it was a parody site. So he decided to fill out an application, and I guess the owner of the parody site said, "Holy S-word, this guy thinks this is real. I should probably tell somebody." Turned him in. FBI went undercover, found him in Hermitage. A dude who wanted to professionally eliminate humans at $5,000 a pop. Welcome to America.
But that price doesn't include the burial.
That's extra.
Yeah, if you want the full package, it's $7,500.
That's the other application for a cleaner.
Oh, okay.
Yes. So it's 5:30. I'm Pamela Furr on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
It is now 5:31, and I'm Jay Harper with your top stories. We're looking at a partly cloudy skies, 73 degrees downtown. Weather and traffic are on the way. The Supreme Court of the United States gets involved in the legal battle over the FDA's approval of mifepristone, commonly called the abortion pill.
Justice Samuel Alito responding to the emergency intervention request from mifepristone manufacturer Danco Laboratories, announcing access to the abortion pill will remain as is for at least the next 5 days while the court considers the case. That decision effectively freezes an appeal court's ruling that would have tightened guidelines on the prescribing and administering of the drug by Saturday.
That's Justin Finch reporting. After mortgage rates soared above 7% due to large interest rates by the Federal Reserve, the latest data shows mortgage rates are heading back down. Here's ABC's Michelle Franzen.
A positive sign as spring house hunting ramps up. Mortgage rates dipped for the fifth straight week, according to Freddie Mac. The average for a 30-year fixed mortgage edged down slightly to 6.27% from 6.28% the week before. Analysts say with rates still high, though, inventory will be sparse, keeping prices higher for potential buyers. That's because the majority of Americans, some 85%, locked in rates below 5% before the rise in interest rates drove mortgage rates through the roof.
That is the latest news. Traffic and weather are upcoming. I'm Jay Harper, WTN News.
Good afternoon. It is 5:35. Hallelujah. The weekend. The weekend is here. Right before you. As you rot in traffic, just remember, it's here. Welcome. I'm Pamela Furr in for Brian Wilson on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Can I go ahead and leave?
No. No, you would leave me by myself having to push buttons.
You're capable.
Yes, I am. All right. We have a theme song, don't we? For Phone Your Farb Friday. I do believe. Yes? Hello?
Tell me what's on your mind. I want to know what you're thinking. There are some things you can't hide.
All right, 615-737-9986. The tradition is alive. We will take your phone calls today on Phone Your Farb Friday. What do you need to get off your chest? Do you want to talk about the hitman, would-be hitman in Hermitage? Do you want to talk about the leaker of classified documents? Do you want to talk about the CEO of Anheuser-Busch who says, hey, we didn't mean to get into this controversy here. We're not trying to divide people. We're trying to unite people over a beer. I mean, the gamut is long. And you could also talk about our Tennessee State House. You can talk, and the crazy there. I mean, I'm ready for this session to be over. I can tell you that. And we can get back to life and really being able to talk about things amongst ourselves instead of pointing fingers and calling people names like racist and whatnot. Cody's in McMinnville. Hey, Cody, how's it going?
Good. How are you doing?
Doing fantastic. Welcome to Phone Your Farb Friday. What's your comment?
Well, I was curious about the FedNow app. I've been hearing a lot about that. I don't know if it's conspiracy theory or if it's actually going to happen.
Not a clue. What is it supposed to be?
It's supposed to, from what I've heard, it's supposed to do away with money.
Do away with money?
Well, kind of like the cashless system.
Yeah.
It was supposed to go into effect July 23rd, so I didn't know if anybody heard any real stories on that or from what I've been hearing, just conspiracy theory.
FedNow app, July 23rd. I don't know.
Because it's supposed to relate it to the collapse of the dollar, and they're going to track everything. And
Federal Reserve announces July launch for the FedNow app, and that's on federalreserve.gov. That's all I have. Just go to the Federal Reserve website and look and see.
The big the
Thank
conspiracy around that is that it's going to do away with real money and we'll only have digital currency. But if you think about it, 99% of all transactions in this country are digital.
Yeah. Don't disagree with that. So all I have is just a press release, right? So it looks like it will. All right, let me just read it to you. The Federal Reserve announced the FedNow service will start operating in July and provided details on preparations for the launch. It will begin the formal certification of participants for the launch of service. Early adapters will complete a customer testing and this just seems very blah, blah, blah to me. Go check it out. I mean, it's not a conspiracy that it's going to happen, but will it do away with money, with real money? I don't know. I'm not the expert on that, and I apologize, Cody. 737-9986. Let's go to Clint in Mount Juliet. Hey, Clint.
Hello, Pamela, everyone out there. Hey, I didn't really want to call to discuss nothing necessarily, but I just wanted to put it out there. We're, 17 days out from the Covenant's school shooting, and we have nothing on the manifesto.
I know. Can you turn him down just a bit? He is blaring. Okay, you talk really loud, Clint. We need to see the manifesto.
Well, absolutely. So, just a reminder, like I said, 17 days, and I'm going to keep on reminding you and everybody else.
Yep.
So we're at day 17.
Feel free. Yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you on that, Clint. What's the FBI waiting on? You've had time now. What is it that Uncle Phil used to say? It's not what they tell you, but what they don't. Rick in White House. Hey, Rick, how are you today?
Well, that's okay. Hey, just a thought or two here. How is it that the FBI and the Justice Department can find this leaker within days of discovering the leak, yet they can't find the leaker in the Supreme Court a year? It took a year, and they still haven't been able to find the guy.
Isn't that the truth?
Isn't it that they wanted to find the leaker for the Pentagon, but not the leaker for the Supreme Court? Just a thought.
Well, it's a great thought, Rick. The only thing I would say to that is that it looks like some of the Discord members in that group are the one that kind of threw their friend under the bus. So I don't know that it was brilliant police work as it was brilliant big mouths. I don't know that it was, you know what I mean? Whereas with the Supreme Court leaker, there's something that tells me they know who leaked that. Well, I think there are news organizations that know exactly who leaked it, but they're protecting their source. But I think I think the powers that be know who leaked it. And for whatever reason, they don't want that information out either. And the question is why? Why? Let's go to Sally in Lebanon on Phone Your Farb Friday. Hey, Sally.
Hey, I'm so happy to hear you on the radio, and thanks for taking my call.
Absolutely.
And I would encourage, if there's one non-conservative listening, I would like to hear why I'm wrong, and that is the largest mass murder that we've had in our country was Oklahoma. So if we were to bar guns, they'll go somewhere else. If they have it in their heart, they're probably going to figure out a way to do it. So, I just don't think taking the guns is the solution.
Right. Thank you, Sally. I appreciate it, especially because it's a God-given right to be able to defend yourself. It is a certain inalienable right in our Constitution. It is the Second Amendment. It was very important. Next to our First Amendment rights of free speech and religion and all of those things. So we have the freedom of the press, even, and then your Second Amendment right. I know we're now debating about what to call some of these new laws that may go across the desk of Tennessee lawmakers here. And I know I'm a Tennessee Firearms Association individual. I believe in certain things that the NRA promotes, not all. I'm actually more of a fan of the organization called Gun Owners of America. But I will tell you that we are going to have to figure out a way that includes due process to separate dangerous people from weapons. Dangerous people in that dangerous people who want to hurt other people, hurt other innocent people. We have to find a way to keep them from purchasing guns. Yes, they could find another way to hurt somebody. That's true, but why make it easy? And I'm only talking about the mentally, those who are in a mental health crisis. We have to talk about that. We have to. Whether you like it or not, you have to. But I don't believe in passing knee-jerk legislation without thinking it through. And I've been very vocal about that. I know I've been on different times here in the last couple of weeks, but I want to make sure it's clear. I think we should talk about it. But if you're talking about extreme, let's see, what do they call it? Extreme risk protection orders. I think Heidi Campbell and Bob Freeman have introduced the legislation in the state and, in the Senate and in the House. And on the surface, it sounds good, but as someone who's been a victim of a false accusation of wanting to hurt someone with a gun, I can tell you that people abuse the laws that are already on the books now. And so, in my opinion, if you are going to separate someone from their Second Amendment right, there has to be a provision in the law that gives stiff punishment to those who abuse that law, to those who falsely accuse and bring before the court fake information or whatever it may be. Maybe even get the ex parte part out of it, which means only one party comes to the court and says, this is what has happened, so that there's not an abuse of the law. There are too many people that use the police, they use law enforcement to settle disagreements, and they use laws like orders of protection, and they make excuses like, he threatened me, and no, there's been no threat. He was here with a gun. The dude doesn't even own a gun. All of these things that law enforcement will tell you, most of their calls are those kinds of calls, domestic calls, where someone just wants them to solve a fight, an argument, whatever, and so the law gets abused. So there has to be something severe, and prosecutors have to use it to prevent people from abusing the law. Otherwise, you're going to have a lot of chaos. You're going to have a lot of courts filled with frivolous cases that waste a lot of people's time. And again, you're talking about separating someone from their Second Amendment right, separating someone from their constitutional right. And if you're going to do that, there has to be due process. And again, I think the other element is you have to have a step penalty if you abuse that law. All right, it is 10:50. I'm running a little behind here. I know we have more calls. It is Phone Your Farb Friday. I'll try to get to those, but we have to take a break here on The Drive on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Coming up at 6 o'clock, we'll have info on the U.S. Supreme Court's decision on an abortion drug. And the NRA is meeting in Indianapolis, and a list of potential presidential candidates on the speaker's list. This and more coming up at 6. I'm Jay Harper on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
I know someone who's now no longer a potential presidential candidate. Is that in your news story?
Not at the moment,
All
man.
right.
I'll let you spring that one.
All right. Mike Pompeo has now announced he will not be running for president in 2024. A lot of people had wondered. There'd been speculation, and he has said he will not be running. How much time do I have here, Bill? Do I have time to take another call, or do I need to?
No, you need to.
Just
in
kind
fact,
of-
I'm going to do this.
What? Well, thank you. That means it's time to go. So if you guys will hold on, Steve and Chad and Mike and others, if you'll hold on the line for Phone Your Farb Friday, we'll try to take your phone calls after 6 o'clock as we wrap up the 5 o'clock hour on The Drive with Brian Wilson. I am Pamela Furr filling in. Glad to be with you this afternoon. And there are a lot of things on the agenda, so we'll continue when we return on WTN.
Good evening. We're coming up on 6:02 on this Friday. I'm Jay Harper with your top stories. We've got a mix of clouds and sun and 73 degrees downtown. We'll get you that weekend forecast and the traffic report here in just a few moments. Just hours before new restrictions were set to be put in place on the abortion drug mifepristone, Supreme Court Justice Samuel Alito issued an administrative stay earlier this afternoon of the Texas court ruling until midnight, April 19th. ABC's Devin Dwyer explains what new restrictions would be passed on to those that are looking for access to the drug if the drug is upheld.
This drug can only be used up to 7 weeks instead of 10 weeks of pregnancy. That means that women would have to get the drug from their doctors, in fact, make 3 in-person visits to be able to use it. They wouldn't be able to get it through the mail or from a telehealth prescription, and they would not be able to use generic versions of the drug, which is across the board, across the country right now. So pretty significant change.
Rallying around guns and against Democrats, Vice President Mike Pence earlier today at the NRA Leadership Forum in Indianapolis. ABC's Dave Packer was there and has more.
Former Vice President Mike Pence addressing the NRA Leadership Forum.
I came here today before the NRA to say enough is enough. It's time we took a stand for America and for freedom.
Just days after America's latest mass shooting at a bank in Louisville, Kentucky, Pence proclaiming,
"We don't need gun control. We need crime control. We don't need lectures about the liberties of law-abiding citizens. We need solutions to protect our kids."
Pence calling gun ownership a God-given right.
New details involving a motive in last week's murder of Cash App founder Bob Lee in San Francisco. Police said this week it was targeted and the two knew each other. Now we are hearing about a possible motive.
In court documents obtained by ABC News, prosecutors allege fellow tech entrepreneur Nima Malmini was angry with Bob Lee for possibly having a relationship with Malmini's sister, who is married. They allege Malmini had been calling that night and finally showed up at the apartment belonging to Malmini's sister. Then Bob Lee showed up. They left in Malmini's BMW. The BMW was seen on video driving to a dark, secluded place, and then Lee was stabbed to death. Prosecutors say a knife with blood on it was found nearby. Malmini is now charged with murder.
That's Alex Stone reporting from San Francisco. There you have the latest news, traffic, and weather on the way. I'm Jay Harper for WTN News.
Good afternoon. It is 8 minutes after 6 o'clock. I am Pamela Furr. In for Brian Wilson on the drive. It's Friday. Hallelujah. It is Friday. I am so happy. I've never been so happy to see the weekend as I am right now. What about you? 615-737-9986. That is our phone number. You can send us a text on the Super Text line. I think Super Talk TV is up and running. Please do not look at my bloodshot eyes. That is not bloodshed. That was weird. Please don't look at them because they're burning right now, and I don't know why. Is it all the bright lights? Perhaps the pollen in the air? I don't know, but they're burning. So please don't judge me on that. All right. So we are monitoring the information that keeps coming out about this 21-year-old that has been charged with 2 counts of violating the Espionage Act. We're talking about a 21-year-old who leaked government documents online in this group called Discord, right? If you don't know what that is, it is a chat space, server space, if you will. A lot of gamers go there, a lot of youngsters who like to game and, I don't know, that sort of thing. And this young kid, and boy, I'm looking at his photo. He looks so young. My goodness. And I just have to wonder, what in the world was he doing with classified information? And apparently, in the MOS that he had with the Air National Guard, he had access to classified documents. Now, of course, they have to swear that they're not going to reveal when you get that kind of top secret clearance, and he's had it since 2021. You obviously know the rules. You're not supposed to share this information. I think what the difference is here, at least so far, it doesn't look like this young man was making a statement. He wasn't making a statement in that the world needs to see what is really going on behind the scenes with the government. He was making more of I'm kind of a bad A, as Dan likes to call it. I'm kind of a bad A, so I'm going to show off and show you how bad A I am. And apparently he would just copy information, as in write it out with a keyboard and just write information that was classified. And I guess the guys in the chat room didn't really take him seriously and didn't really respond much to it. And it ticked him off. And so that's when he decided to actually take pictures of the documents and post it in this particular Discord chat room. And that's when, from the way I'm understanding this case, someone in that chat room said, "Oh, this looks pretty serious," and may have at that point turned him in. He began to get a little paranoid that he was going to get caught and started Googling, leaked and other words, because I guess he felt like it was just a matter of time. I'm also told, I don't know how good he was at IT or intelligence. He signed up with his Discord account using his real name and his real address. So once they found out that OG was the one putting these documents up, OG was found very easily because he used his real name and his real address.
I think if you take the totality of information right there that you just gave out, this guy was too stupid to be in the military.
He was too stupid to be in military intelligence.
No, in the military, this guy shouldn't have been peeling potatoes.
KP wasn't even good enough for this man, which is really, really scary. 737-9986 is the phone number. We've got Josh on the line from Mount Juliet. Hey, Josh, welcome to Phone Your Fur Friday. How you doing?
Hey, Pamela, how are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm good. Hey, I'm a retired Air Force dude. And I retired out of Fort Campbell. I was stationed there for 11 years. And just on your comments earlier, I would ask if you look up U.S. Air Force Special Warfare. We're not all weenies.
All right, fair enough. fair enough. I don't disagree, but there's a battle that goes on between Army and Air Force and Marines. It's all real. That one group thinks they're bigger bad A's than others, and so I'm with you now. So you were there for how long?
Now, I was stationed in Fort Campbell since 2007. I retired in 2018.
Gotcha. Now, may I ask what your MOS was?
You'll have to Google it. U.S. Air Force TAC-P. I'm pretty much, if you remember, Transformers with Tyrese. He was the Air Force guy that was running around with the razors.
Yeah.
That's what I did.
You run around with razors?
Yeah, I controlled the airstrikes for them.
That's actually pretty cool. I mean, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, we do all the stuff that the Army guys do.
So you're claiming that you ran Transformers?
No, I'm white.
Now you ruined it.
All right, but let me ask you something, Josh. Now, when you hear the story of this 21-year-old, you can't.
Oh, I think it's very irresponsible. I don't blame him so much as I blame his leadership.
Really? Now, why do you blame the leadership?
Because clearly they had a culture of being lackadaisical with how they controlled classified information.
Yeah. All right. Well, that you do have a point on that, because you would think they would have drilled in his head. You leak this information, you're dead, or something. But
well, yeah, you got to think about it. These kids. Well, he was 21, so he was probably 12 or so when Hillary got caught with all that stuff. Like, oh, nothing happened to her. I'll be good.
Well, Edward Snowden.
Yeah.
I mean, nothing's happened yet. Of course, he's, in exile, but nothing's happened to him. And then you have Bradley Manning. Something did happen to him. And then he decided to transition to a female, and Obama gave him a pardon. So he didn't spend much time.
No, like, that's you.
Yeah. So, maybe that's what this kid needs to do, Josh.
Yeah, I don't know. No, he won't. He would be allowed in our group.
Thank you very much, Josh. I appreciate your phone call, and thank you for your service to our country. No, I think Jack Teixeira should become Jill Teixeira, and then he'll get a pardon. What do you think?
When they were talking about Biden as a senator, how he ended up with classified documents at home, and there's procedures that are supposed to prevent you from being able to copy or leave.
Mm-hmm.
How did this guy end up with a phone in an area with classified information?
See, that's my question, because, it seems like these are documents that are presented to people in that room where cell phones are left way behind. So,
and even if it's part of his day-to-day work routine, why is his phone with him at his computer or his workstation
at work,
or anything where he could take pictures of it?
Right.
He's copying. You said he was copying stuff, just writing it.
He was doing it, with his keyboard, and then
just making a Word document,
right? Nobody was, insane. And no one was paying any attention. They're like, yeah, whatever. He copied he took pictures of the document so that the emblems could be seen and what have you.
Yeah, I completely agree with the caller that his bosses somebody needs to be demoted and punished,
and they need to come up with new, stricter policies there within the Defense Department, for crying out loud, on anybody who has access to classified information. Come on, this is 2023. It is not difficult. All right, let's do this. Let's go ahead and take a break. It's 6:17. It's Phone Your Farb Friday, 615-737-9986. I'm Pamela Furr, in for Brian Wilson on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
We'll have a report on what the motive may have been in the military intel leak, and we'll get to more of today's money news. All this coming up at 6:30. I'm Jay Harper on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Thank you very much, Jay. I appreciate it. I am Pamela Furr in for Brian Wilson on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. It is 6:22. Good afternoon. The weekend is here. It is upon us. Hallelujah. Praise Jesus. I'm very happy about this. Now, I heard you earlier, Jay, talking about things that are going on downtown this weekend. It's going to be a very, very busy weekend downtown.
Yeah, that in conjunction with road closures on the interstate that, one of the main drags, exit 52 off of 24 West heading into town, is going to be rerouting on I-440. So there's also some sort of march or something going on at the state capitol right now.
Seriously, right now?
Yeah, I mean, well, I've been seeing some reports on one of the local TV stations. It appears to be, one of the gun control marches. It doesn't look like a real large crowd, but nonetheless, there are, it's an emotional issue, so there are people there.
So you have that, and then you have the former vice president who's in town. There is an RNC weekend happening downtown at the Four Seasons, I do believe. And so former Vice President Mike Pence, potential, presidential candidate, he is speaking tonight at this RNC fundraiser. And then it's my understanding Donald Trump will be speaking tomorrow night. So that's downtown. You've got the last Predators game of the season happening tonight downtown. You have, I think, the Luke Combs concert at Nissan Stadium is happening this weekend.
That's correct. Tonight and tomorrow night.
So it is this
60,000 fans tonight and tomorrow night.
Holy smokes. Yeah, it's a busy, busy evening.
Yeah, the sounds are playing downtown. Yeah, it's nuts. It's nuts.
Lots of stuff to do if you like to be downtown with a lot of people. I myself am going to go home and not worry about it. So anyway, thank you very much. I appreciate that. And of course, your newscast coming up at 6:30. That's with Jay. All right, 615-737-9986 is the phone number. Will in Lawrenceburg. Hey, Will, welcome to Phone Your Farb Friday.
Pamela, thanks for having me. I got two things. One, the leaker, his name. Don't look at how it's spelled, okay? Because you're kind of massacring it. It's making me laugh.
Oh, I'm mushing it. I'm butchering it like crazy. I already know I am. What is it?
Teixeira.
Teixeira, not Texera.
Don't even look at that X and all those crazy letters.
Just get rid of the X. It's Teixeira.
Teixeira. Now, this guy, he's done probably less with classified stuff than Hillary, but they want to massacre him. I'd like to know everything that was leaked so I could have a better opinion. If he put out anything that would have put some troops in jeopardy, anything to that effect, some operations security, something like that, I'd have a real problem. And go ahead, go after him with the full military tribunal. However, if it's just airing out the dirty laundry like Egypt, someone that we're giving $1 billion to is sending over missiles to Russia, that's the kind of stuff the American public need to know.
Well, so I have to say, I mean, maybe not. I don't know that he posted it so that the American people would know. I think he just wanted to show that he was some sort of, can I say the word after 6 o'clock? It's a badass. Can I say that? I think he was just trying to prove that he was. And so, there are those spokespeople from the Pentagon, from the Defense Department, et cetera, who have said, yes, this leaked information is very concerning because it could put people's lives in danger. But I don't know that they've given details of what that might be.
Yeah, and is it troops' lives in danger, or is them and the shady stuff they've done and they don't want it aired out? Again, it goes back to what was everything that was leaked. I can have a better opinion of this guy because I'm not going to write him off as being a horrible person. He may be one heck of a patriot for doing it, or like you said, just showing out. But there's other people to go after.
Thank you very much for your phone call, Will. I appreciate your opinion. We've got Ernie in Cottontown today. Hey, Ernie.
Long-time listener. Just a couple of comments. In regards to the manifesto that you mentioned half an hour ago.
The Covenant School, the Covenant School shooter manifesto.
Yeah. Well, everybody's making issues about it. the only thing I know is what I heard on radio this morning. William Lambert, he did make a comment on Portland FM channel this morning. He said, I wouldn't call it that, implying that he knows something about it. And now I don't know whether he's read it or looked at it or what, but when he said that, he said, I wouldn't call it a manifesto. So that just implies to me that he knows something about it.
Well, maybe. I'm not sure why he would, because he doesn't represent that part of Nashville.
I don't know, Pamela.
Yeah.
But he made that comment, and there's one thing I need to say is there comes a time that there's people that you trust, like your doctor or your minister. Well, if William Lambert tells you something, you can take it to the bank. I know the man's family, and I don't know him personally, but I was raised right over here. Of course, I'm a lot older than he is.
Mm-hmm.
But he's a guy, you can take it to the bank if he tells you something. And when he made that comment, it implied that, I don't know. Maybe he didn't elaborate on. They were talking about other things.
Sure. Well, I would say this, Ernie, and thank you very much for your telephone call. And I am a fan of William Lambert myself. And so I would say this. I think there was a member of law enforcement that kind of played down recently that it was a manifesto, instead saying it was a bunch of journals. And so Mr. Lambert may be taking it from from the police chief on that, perhaps. So, but I don't know that he's seen it. Of course, I don't know that he has said he has seen it, but none of us have seen it. And I think it's important that we do. I think it's important to just post it and let us go read it for ourselves if we want to. But if you're talking about journals of someone who is obviously delusional, we will probably read it ourselves, just normal everyday lay people, and won't be able to understand anything. When you have those who are in the mental health profession that are psychologists, psychiatrists, and counselors who have been trained, they can probably look at it and really get a clear picture of what we are looking at here. You know, is this someone with gender dysphoria? Is this someone who is autistic? Is this someone who is just suicidal? Is this someone who is deranged and a sociopath? All of those things. It is 6:30. We've got Mike who's on the line. Mike, I want you to hold on. We will come back to you when we come back from this news break. I'm Pamela Furr. Phone Your Farb Friday. This is The Drive with Brian Wilson on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
It is 6:30, and I'm Jay Harper with your top stories. We're still seeing a bit of sunshine through some clouds, and it's 71 degrees. Weather and traffic on the way. Jack Teixeira in court this morning in Boston. Investigators say the 21-year-old Air Force National Guardsman posted classified documents online weeks ago in a gaming chat room on Discord. ABC reporter Aaron Katursky tells us the data was allegedly traced back to Teixeira, both by at least one other user and through forensics provided to law enforcement by the platform.
The FBI was able to access Teixeira's account with Discord's help after they had interviewed someone in the chat group where this document was posted. It's unclear from the charging document whether that's the same person interviewed by the Washington Post who described the nature of this chat room and why he believed Teixeira allegedly did this. The charging document says nothing about motive, whether it really was glory-seeking or ego, or whether it was something more sinister.
Here's Dave Packer with today's money news.
From ABC News, Wall Street Now. Stocks finished the day lower as investors still try to assess the health of the banking industry. It would seem very healthy if you consider JP Morgan Chase's earnings. The nation's largest bank posting a 52% profit increase in the first quarter of this year. JP Morgan Chase seeing new funds from depositors seeking the safety of too-big-to-fail banks. With higher interest rates, the bank making more money on loan and credit card interest, doubling lending income. But at the same time, still concerned about mid-sized banks. Silicon Valley Bank and Signature Bank both failed, And First Republic may not be out of the woods yet after its big bank bailout. And those numbers, the Dow dropped 143 points, but still higher for the week. The Nasdaq fell 42 points, the S&P 500 down 8 points Friday. For the second straight month, Americans are spending less as interest rates rise. The Commerce Department says we're pulling back on purchases at stores, restaurants, and car dealerships.
That is the latest. I'm Jay Harper. Traffic and weather are next. This is WTN News.
Super Talk 99.7 WTN. I am Pamela Furr and for Brian Wilson on the drive. Thank you for letting me be with you today as we wrap up this hour of the program. And in fact, wrap up this show, right? We've got 20 minutes or so left together, maybe even a little less. But thank you for letting me be with you today. I will be back. I think next week I'm going to be in. I don't know what I'm doing. I think I'm in from noon to 3 next week. I think is the way that the calendar is falling here. So this will not be our last opportunity to be together. Thank you again for letting me be in your homes, your cars, on your apps, on your Facebook and Twitter and Twitch. And did I get them all? And your YouTube. Are we on TikTok? No? Yes? No?
No.
No TikTok for us?
The Chinese have to work the hard way to hear the show.
I understand. All right, so there is legislation. It's a bill that would equip Tennessee school teachers with silent panic buttons. This bill unanimously passed in the Senate on Thursday, and now it heads to, I believe it's heading to Governor Lee's desk. He said he would sign Alyssa's Law. It's called Alyssa's Law because it was legislation spearheaded by the mother of a Florida student who was shot 8 times in that Parkland, Florida shooting. 8 times. So apparently this is also legislation that is passed in several states across the country and has really had great success so far. So this is good. Your comments on it. Mike wants to comment at 615-737-9986. Hey, Mike in South Pittsburgh.
How you doing, girl?
Great. How are you?
Oh, just lovely. Hey, I do agree with the panic buttons, but but they shouldn't be silent. They should light that whole entire area up and go on lockdown right away.
Well, I mean, the problem with that is you might lock the shooter inside the school.
Well, still, you're alerting everybody that there's an emergency.
Yeah, I mean, so I don't know how all this will completely work. But yeah, if there is an alarm that goes off, then that shooter is on notice that they are aware that a shooter is there or a shooter is on the way or, yeah.
And I have one more comment about the leaker.
All right.
Okay, all knives are out for this leaker because he's leaking the truth. And the fact is that the United States is not in a proxy war with Russia. It's in a regular war.
Right, because in those documents, wasn't it disclosed that we actually have special forces that are on the ground in Ukraine?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so,
they're trying to cover it up. They're actually silently declaring war against Russia without the approbation of Congress.
Well, here's the thing. Do we need to know that?
Well, it doesn't really matter, but.
Well, I mean, I think it does because, and thank you, Mike, for your call. And here's what I have to say about that. There's some things that we need to know, and there are some things we don't need to know. And if you thought for a second that we didn't have boots on the ground in Ukraine, you're naive, first of all. I have thought all along there's got to be some covert people and covert operations going on in Ukraine somewhere along the way. All this did was confirm it. But here, at this point, now it puts their lives in danger, and now it also pokes the bear when it comes to Russia, right? Russia could very well start moving to retaliate. So did it do us any good by knowing this information and having this information confirmed, or did it put a lot of people in danger because that information was leaked? We're not talking about, I don't think we're talking about, I haven't seen all the documents, but with Edward Snowden, I believe the documentation that he leaked to WikiLeaks showed that Americans were being spied on. Am I right about that? So
he's the one who basically exposed the NSA warrantless spying.
The
on
warrantless
Americans,
spying.
which is still going on.
But was that something that we needed to know? 100% yes. Did that information put anybody's lives in danger? I don't know. There are those that say it could have. I don't know. But I do know Americans being spied on without a warrant is not something the government should be participating in. And so that information, although Edward Snowden did he do the right thing or did he do the wrong thing? See, I'm torn. This guy, this 21-year-old, hold on, let me make this statement. This 21-year-old may have put lives in danger with what he was leaking just to show off. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
If the government is committing a crime,
we need to know.
As they are with the NSA spying on people.
We need to know.
We deserve to know.
Yeah.
Because
we deserve to know.
That directly affects who we choose to represent us.
Absolutely.
Whether they're doing something about it, whether they're choosing to allow it to continue, and it can be very easily argued that through 3 presidents now, we've watched them continue to allow this to happen.
Well, I got to tell you, and I know I've got some phone calls here. I will take your calls. But I will tell you, when I was on another radio station here in town with Johnny B, as a matter of fact, and it was not long after 9/11 when the Patriot Act was passed. And I'm a big George W. Bush fan, but I'm going to tell you right now, the Patriot Act was not a good piece of legislation. And more Americans should have been appalled by it.
And it has a sunset clause in it that they will not allow to sunset. They keep
re-upping it. They keep re-upping it. And so we through emotion, you remember, I've talked about knee-jerk reaction legislation. That's what that Patriot Act was. 100%. Anyway, Reed in Nashville, welcome to the Drive with Brian Wilson. Reed, are you there?
Hey, Pam.
Hey, how are you?
I was eating my chips. Hey, so many things I wish I could comment on. I've texted you a few times about everything with the military and all that, blah, blah, blah. But I want to say this. I am here to say what a wonderful, it is really nice having you in this time slot. And I'm a huge supporter of yours. Everyone in my detachment is a big fan of yours, and we would love to see you get your own show. And this is the official proclamation on behalf of me and everybody else that we think you would be a great addition. This new guy, by the way, in the morning, what's his name? This guy in the morning, I will listen to him coming in. He is fabulous as well. I'm sorry, say again?
Dan Mandis?
No. I think he was filling it. I mean, there's nothing wrong with Dan. Dan's great. He's fabulous and all that kind of stuff.
Well, what new guy? I don't know what new guy.
New or not?
I don't know. I don't know who you're talking about.
Young. I think he was in at the 10 o'clock hour. I see a drive
today. That was Chris Crock.
Today.
So he's in Dallas. Yeah.
Oh, he was.
Yeah. So he was filling in today. Chris Crock. Yeah. Chris Crock is a good guy. You should follow him on socials.
Well, I think I think Pam and Chris and Johnny B would do a great show together if we could do something with that.
Hey, man, just tell me where I need to show up and I'll be there. How's that?
I sure shall. So you're doing a great job.
Thanks.
Keep peeling that onion back in regards to what's going on with the military, because you're starting to uncover some good stuff.
All right. Thank you, Reed. I appreciate it. All right, one more. Ron in Rock Island. Hello, Ron.
Yes, Pamela. What Nashville has got in the General Assembly is the inmates running the asylum. Democrats never let a good crisis go to waste.
True. Is that it?
Yeah. Thank you for taking my call.
You're welcome. He held on for that, too, for several minutes. Well, I mean, yeah, you're right. Democrats don't let a good crisis go to waste. That is very, very true. And I think there's going to be a trial next week before perhaps the Tennessee Supreme Court over gerrymandering. I think that's happening next week. So keep your eyes open and eyes peeled for that. All right. So, we have about 3 minutes left, I think, 2.5, 3 minutes left together. So, I just want to end the show this way. We've had a lot of stuff going on, a lot of accusations. I want to reiterate what I said earlier in the show. I don't know if you've been able to listen that long. If you have, wow, thank you. But I am so tired of this state being run through the mud. And I hope that this weekend and in the next week, some of the rhetoric will just die down, because you're giving a state that I love so dearly a black eye, and that bothers me a lot. I moved to Tennessee when I was a young 21-year-old. I was just as old as that leaker. And I had a lot of big dreams, and I was naive and green, but I loved Tennessee. I moved to Oak Ridge first and then moved to Nashville about 6 months later. And I've had a little bit of a pause. I moved around a little bit because that's the business of radio. But I realized when I was gone, I got to get back to Tennessee. I got to get back to Tennessee. And I did it. You know what I did? Left my job in Atlanta, which is, a top 10 radio market, and said, Tennessee, I'm coming home. And I packed my bags and I left about 10 years ago, I think 10, 11 years ago now, and came back to Nashville. And so it bothers me when I see people calling us racist. That is not the spirit of who we are as Tennesseans. You might find some out there who are, and you know what? They're idiots. That's right, I said it. They're idiots. But you cannot tell me in Tennessee that you as a person of color, who whatever color it may be, don't have the same opportunities as I do. Because you do. And in Tennessee, you can be anything you want to be. You just have to apply yourself and stop making excuses, right? So there you go. That's my statement. Love Tennessee, love Nashville, love you. Thank you for letting me be here with you today. Have yourself a great weekend. I do believe Mark Levin after news is next on WTN.